If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, well, aging. Kim, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. Let's begin by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm a German, 60 years old. I love Olympic weightlifting, which I started at the tender age of 55. And I'm now a health coach, but I used to be a journalist, and I changed my job because I went through quite some adversity with illness and everything. And I muscled my way out of that. And I really want to share that message and encourage everyone to become strong, build some muscle, and become healthier and happier. I live in Spain. My husband and I decided to live here when he retired because it's a beautiful place, great quality of life. And that's what I do. I train myself, weightlifting. I work with women who want to get stronger. I like walks in the park and watching what we call football, and I think you call it soccer. And that's about it.
So in case our listeners don't know, what is MS? And tell us about your experience being diagnosed and your own personal path muscling out of this otherwise crippling disease.
Yeah. So MS is multiple sclerosis. It's an autoimmune affliction disease where your immune system attacks your own nerve cells in the case of MS. And it has a million faces, is different for every single one, but it's something, I think it makes everybody feel that your body is betraying you because it's sort of attacking itself and you don't really feel anything and you don't feel that there's anything you can do. For me, it started with one autoimmune episode that wasn't even MS, but that was already mighty scary. That was when I was like 45 years old. I was picking up my kids from school in Berlin, and I was beginning to see double, which was like super scary. And, you're middle-aged, you have a niggle here and there, you just ignore it and you think, I'm going to go, keep going. When you see double, no, you can't deny your way out of that one. So I went straight to the doctors. They sent me to the hospital, and I spent 6 weeks there. After 3 weeks, I had lost the use of my legs completely. So I had like ascending paralysis. The eyes were crossing, and it was all autoimmune. They knew that, but they couldn't put a finger on what they wanted to call it because I had symptoms from all over the place. And they finally decided when I had left the hospital that it was a syndrome Guillain-Barre, which is a one-off. It comes and it goes. And for me, it stopped at the hips, which is great because it can ascend even higher, then you can't breathe, then you have to be ventilated. So, I came home in a wheelchair. I had to walk on crutches for a long time to learn walking again, but I recovered from that one. And I was like so grateful, so happy. I was given a clean bill of health after that. And lo and behold, a year later, I felt my left hand going numb. And I knew that wasn't good. More tests. And then they told me this is different. It's still autoimmune, but this time your immune system is attacking the white matter in your nerve cells, and that can cause permanent damage. That was a brutal blow because I was so happy when I overcame the first one. I thought I was done with this. And I even remember one doctor at one point saying, I don't think this is MS because you're too old to get MS. But even that wasn't true. And you have to wait for a second episode before it's officially declared MS. I was hoping it wouldn't come, but it did after a year. I felt like a tingling in my spine. And this is something with these neurological things. You always feel something that you shouldn't be feeling, something that should be normal. And, without any remarkable thing, you all of a sudden you feel something. Like the hand felt numb, sensitivity was lost, and it gives you weird sensations. I felt that tingling in my spine. And then I got the official diagnosis. This is MS, and you will need lifelong treatment.
And how far did it progress? I teach my pathophysiology and exercise class, and we talk about the 5-year rule, that the number of exacerbations within a 5-year period has a pretty good correlation to how severe the disease will develop and what the prognosis might be.
Yeah. So when my hand went numb, even the neurologist thought that it was a repetition of what I had before. And it wasn't. It was different. It was like an MS episode. And that's why it took several weeks before I got some treatment to stop it. And my left hand is numb to this day. So if I look for something in my pocket, grab an earphone or something, I could come up with something different because I can't really feel with that left hand. The second episode that I had was so much milder. It was just a little bit of a tingling in my spine. We nipped it in the bud. And that's also why I had a long discussion with my doctor when he said lifelong treatment. I said, the second one was so much less. I didn't even, I hardly felt anything. It was just because I was attentive that I noticed it. And maybe it's receding. Maybe I don't need this lifelong treatment. So the damage in I call it the damage in my hand. It's actually damage in my spine, but that's very hard to visualize for a human. That's pretty serious, but that's also because we didn't treat it right away. But that's all that was left. I could walk, and I can grab things and everything. So it's more sensitive than it is like motor skill. The second one was very mild. And then I got the treatment. And I got the treatment for a total of 4 years. And as soon as I got that treatment, I had nothing. No symptoms at all. And that's also why I fought against the treatment, because you don't have any symptoms. You don't know. Is it because you're better? Or is it because you're injecting yourself 3 times a week with this substance that, causes you like horrible flu symptoms and stuff? It was no fun at all. But all in all, it didn't go very far, actually.
Well, that's a blessing. Yes. So what drew you to weightlifting, especially after you've been diagnosed with MS?
I had always been like exercising, and I'd been to gyms using machines and stuff after this diagnosis. And it's combined with my stay in the hospital, because in the hospital you become like a thing, like an object. You lose so much of you have no power at all, actually. You don't decide when to turn on the light. When you go to sleep, when someone's in your room, you have no power. And I didn't even have the power to, decide when I wanted to go to the toilet or under the shower, because I couldn't walk. So when I got this second diagnosis, I felt this urge to become physically strong. I wanted this physical, not only autonomy, but I wanted real strength, and I wanted to build myself back up. And I armed myself with a book. That was one of the first, actually, saying that women should lift heavy. And I used this book as my guide and started working out. And I got stronger really fast, felt so much better. It's amazing, what strength training does to your mind. You get such a positive outlook. You think you can face anything. And I'd been doing that for years. When a PT asked me, would you like to try some Olympic weightlifting just for fun? And I said, okay, let's give it a shot. And I don't know how much you know about Olympic weightlifting. It's very technical. I mean, you do need strength, but it's super technical. And of course, I sucked at it, right? Big time. But I was hooked because the challenge is amazing. Every single repetition is different. You dream of lifting the same way over and over again. You can't. Every single one is different, and you have to refine and practice and improve all the time. And I love that so much that I left my commercial gym and joined a weightlifting club. like the real deal, where there's no mirrors and no music, just a lot of iron and a trainer who gives you a program, tells you what to do. And after 2 weeks, someone came and said, "Hey, Kim, do you want to compete?" And I said, "Ha, ha, ha." "Do you know that I'm 55? And I said, "Yeah, look over there, Mary, she's 56 and she's competing." And I said, "Okay, why not?" And you know what? I don't think that in my 30s I would have said yes to this. I think it takes some sort of liberation. And, some of my coaches say after 50 people become anarchists and they just do whatever they want. And I say yes. And it's great. It's amazing.
Well, especially with that mindset of I want to be physically strong, you also probably in return were becoming mentally strong, where you started believing in yourself and you were like, yeah, I can definitely do this. Why not? Why not go for it? Right?
I think this is one of the biggest effects of strength training and weight training. And after 4 years of treatment, I was in such good shape, actually, that my neurologist said I could stop my treatment. And I think that my healing, I'm not going to pretend or claim that you can heal MS with weightlifting or strength training. No, but I think that my healing process came through this mental health aspect where I just felt so optimistic and so good. And it works for everyone. There's so much research. And I didn't know that at the time, like at all. But now we have so much research saying over and over again that strength training, working out, becoming strong will improve all kinds of symptoms of mental health problems, reduce anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, all of this. And I think because our brain, yes, it's very complex, but it's also a little bit simplistic. So if we sort of teach our brain in the gym that we can overcome resistance, which is what we do, literally, I think it will sort of connect to other areas of our lives where we just know, like intuitively, yes, this is resistance I'm encountering. This is adversity. But I have this experience in my bones, in my fibers, like literally, that I can overcome resistance. And I truly believe that it carries over into these other parts of our lives and makes us like just stronger and more positive in everything.
Yeah. So a few of our listeners will feel they have the wherewithal to become a weightlifting champion. What did it take you to land yourself on the podium, especially in the face of MS?
I think it's just showing up. It sounds, maybe it's not even fair to say just showing up, because showing up is the one that where you have to go again and again and again. And when I mentioned that it's lifelong learning and that's a technical challenge like the weightlifting technique and stuff, you cannot give up. You have to just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And then you have to go to the competitions. You have to be there. And I can tell you that in my age group, it's getting fewer and fewer people who show up. There are some guys in their late 80s. They travel the world. They show up for the weigh-in. They go to the podium, to the platform, and they lift. They still show up. And I think that's the most important part. Then you have to want to compete, of course. And that's something also that I discovered. I never thought of myself as a competitive person, and I never thought of myself as someone who can win. So it's an entire evolution, development of yourself, your beliefs, of course your physical ability. If you keep showing up, and if you're ready to keep showing up, and I can tell you some training days, they really suck because nothing works the way you want it to work. And you can focus as much as you want. Your body just doesn't do what you want it to do. If you keep showing up, then you have what it takes to compete and to win.
I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging. So I've always joked that I'm going to wait until I'm in my 80s, and I'm 61 right now, almost 61. And so I keep joking, I'm going to wait until I'm in my 80s to become an elite athlete, because there'll just be that attrition, all the people that'll just stop doing things. And if I maintain, I'm going to be okay. So that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, that's great. And that's what I say. I have a colleague, she's my age, a year older than me, I think, and we compete together, and we keep telling ourselves, we just have to stay around. Just stick around. We're going to be world champion one day.
You will. And that kind of brings me to the question of resiliency. Resiliency is a key factor in your success. Is this a genetic trait, a learned trait? Is it something you simply mustered from within yourself? How does one develop the resiliency to overcome the challenges we face in life and to age well?
Well, this is a subject I'm very passionate about, because we tend to believe that these qualities are somehow innate, and they are like character strength, personality traits. So when we fail at something or we cannot make it happen, then we think there's something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me, because it's a personal quality. I don't have that quality, so I'm not an optimal person. I'm not a good person, or something just not right with me. And I like to consider all these qualities, and especially resiliency, as a skill. It's something that you can learn. It's something that you can build up for yourself. And especially resiliency, I have this image that I somehow created for myself. I see it as a safety net, actually, and like literally a net. And it needs to have many, many knots to be stable. And I came up with that thought when I talked to, I can't tell you how many ladies who told me, oh, a few years ago, I was in great shape. I trained with a PT. I ate right. I lost weight. I felt so good. And then the PT, they went out of business. They moved away, and it all stopped. It all fell apart. And I think if you have just this one point of support in your safety net, and that point breaks away, then you will just fall through. You cannot bounce back. If you create deliberately various points of support, you tie those knots. And that could be a gym buddy. If you don't want to rely on just one trainer to keep training, maybe you want a gym buddy. You want a supportive environment, a helpful family, whatever it is. So many things can help you if you are deliberate about this. When you choose where you want to live, if you get to choose, make it close to a gym or close to somewhere where you can go for long walks, whatever it is. Build those little support spots, these knots that will be there. And when one falls apart, you have all the rest sort of, to catch you and help you bounce back. And that's something that you can learn, and it's a skill that you can build. And, if you don't have that now, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You just haven't done that yet.
I like that analogy. That's a really good analogy, the net.
So, Kim, you're a journalist turned health coach and competitor. What advice do you have for women, especially those who might believe the stereotype of muscle building as pumping iron, and then they worry about lifting weights will make them too bulky?
Yeah. That's the eternal question. And depending on my mood, I can, react angrily, or I can just laugh about this. First of all, you don't have to set foot in a gym to become really strong. I love gyms. I love pumping iron. If I have to, most of all, I like weightlifting. But I totally understand if you hate that. So you can become so strong by just using the weight of your body. And this is basically also the purpose, the goal of all this weight training, is that you can handle your body with confidence and easily, without pain, without struggling. So just with body weight exercises, you can start your strength training and can get stronger and stronger. And mostly what we do today is not working on tiny muscle groups to make them blow up, like we have from, these images from the 70s and Arnold in shorts and sweating and pumping. This image is so stuck in our culture, when what we're training today, yes, we want to build muscle, but we don't train muscle, we train movements. We train for movements, for functionality. So you want to push and pull and carry and do stuff like that. That's what you do. And that will never make you look bulky. Apart from the fact that, of course, a woman needs to be a genetic outlier to become bulky. Yes, one in I don't know how many thousands will have that genetic makeup to become like really like, very muscular, but most of us won't, even if you try. And the days when I get angry about this fear is when I think of all the people toiling away in gyms and lifting and struggling and working hard to get that bulky look, and they still can't make it happen. And then, some woman comes along and says, oh, if I look at this pink dumbbell from 2 yards away, I'm going to blow up. It's not going to happen. It's extremely unlikely. You will carry yourself differently. You will stand taller and you will be stronger. And you will feel that when you carry groceries that they don't weigh anything anymore, but you will not become bulky.
I was asked by a student a number of years ago how I would respond to a woman saying that she didn't want to lift weights because she didn't want to get quote unquote bulky. And on that particular day, I was just kind of in a weird mood. So I passed on my usual answer and just said, tell them they're not willing to put in the work. After all, it takes a lot of work to build muscle, even for men. And like you said, you get those people that are toiling in the gym wanting to get big and they don't get big. I'm kind of that person. I mean, I'm never going to get really huge lifting, but I think at my age, I've maintained a fair amount of strength and I'm still gaining strength. And so when you first reached out to me, you said you were, quote, on a mission to help women embrace muscle and strength as a one-stop shop solution for a host of health problems, often from our 30s onwards. Is it as simple as just joining a gym and starting to lift weights, or is there more to it than just a one-stop shop?
I think it's as simple as that from a physiological point of view. You just lift heavy shit, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think, the behavioral and the cultural surroundings of all that, of that concept. Because joining a gym in itself, for many women, is a big no-no. It's just they've tried it before, they don't feel they don't feel at home there, they don't feel comfortable, and then very often they don't even know what to do. Because, you get this tour when you join a gym and they show you all the machines and what they do, and maybe you even get a program. But when you come back by yourself for the first time, what was this? I don't remember. You feel, you're sort of embarrassed and you think you're making a fool of yourself, and you end up on the treadmill or the elliptical because that is the most inconspicuous way of doing something in the gym. So I think the sort of getting started aspect of this, I think that's the tricky part. That's where the friction happens. And it also has a lot to do with where you are at physically. Because many women are willing to do something, they want to get stronger. This muscle message and the health benefits of muscle, they are getting into the mainstream. It's becoming more known. But where do you start? If you want to become strong and you haven't done anything in a long time, you can find a great YouTube video, great programs there, really, nice programming, but it's maybe not for you. Maybe you just have to, start by reconnecting your brain with your muscles. Maybe you need to really very gently start moving again. And if you follow any program that's not considering your individual status, you're very likely to get hurt or discouraged. So I think, yes, in theory, from the physiological point of view, all you do is, you start lifting weights and you're going to feel better in no time at all. The problem is, how do you start? Where do you start? And I think there's a lot of work we can do by explaining just, you don't have to join a gym. You can do small movements, start very gently, and you don't have to work out for hours either. I start with my clients with 15 minutes a day, and after 2 weeks, they come back to me and say, oh my God, I have so much energy. What's going on here?
You've basically summarized everything I teach in my classes in about 5 minutes there. So.
Wow. Thanks.
Yeah, so we often talk about aging well from a perspective of well-centered fitness. Dr. Armstrong has a friend, Jay, who has actually labeled it SPIES, which stands for spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social wellness. Can you share with us a little bit more about these dimensions of wellness that they have played a role in your road from the wheelchair to a European Masters weightlifting championship.
Yeah, I think it's something that gets overlooked a lot. In my approach, I call it deep health, but it's exactly what you're describing. And your environment, the support you have, and the support I had, for example, from my family, they play a crucial role. And it's often boiled down to, eat less and move more. But there's so many aspects around this. How is your access to healthy foods, for example? Is it easy for you? Can you afford them? Go out for walks. I had to learn that myself. I had a client, she lived in Dallas, I think, and I said, go out for a walk first thing in the morning. She said, I dare not go out first thing in the morning. There's so many dangerous people out there in my neighborhood. How safe do you feel where you live? All these aspects that play into this. How confident are you that you can go out and look after your health and go and lift weights and go for walks and eat this kind of food without being frowned upon maybe by even the closest people to you? They might think, oh my God, what are you doing? Are you changing? I don't want you to change. I want you to stay your same old. And for me, what I have experienced in all those years is that I always had a lot of freedom to do what I wanted to do. And I think this is something we can't take for granted for everyone. We have to really know, where can we start sort of taking bits of power back. I think especially for women, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think power is a big issue when it comes to women's health. And I was always supported in my choices. There might have been a point where when my husband said, "My God, Kim, you're very muscular," but it was never in a way of, stop doing this or anything. But this deep health aspect, everything around it, we have to take that into account. It's, just throwing at people that they should eat less and move more without knowing, what their entire situation is not helpful. And I think it's something that needs to be really addressed in any type of health program or wellness course, whatever it is.
We often, in my teaching, we talk in terms of the biomechanical, psychosocial aspects of exercise and having to tie all that in, that it's not just the physiology, it's the mechanical, learning the techniques of the movements, but then also there's a very deep psychological and sociological aspect to it that keeps us going and motivates us and does all that. And so our success is really dependent upon all of those different things. And, I asked this question basically of all our guests, and you've kind of already addressed part of the question, but any more that you want to share with our listeners about what you are doing personally to age well?
What I'm doing personally, no problem. I sleep 8 hours every night. I meditate every day. And I started meditating actually when I had my diagnosis because I was so scared and I knew that I needed to do something. I think meditation is a game changer because it helps you with so many things. And I think there's weird ideas still out there about what meditation is. Basically, it allows you to step away from your emotions and your sensations and start dealing with them. And it makes them much less intense also. So sleeping, meditating, walking in nature, that's about it. Having a lot of
lifting weights, of course.
Yeah, of course. I didn't want to say it again because I think I've said it 5 times already. Lifting weights, it's just so empowering. And there's another aspect to this weightlifting also in my case, because the club is like a second family. And I lift with people who are 16 and I lift with people who are 60. And we stick together. Yes, you walk out on the platform by yourself and nobody's going to lift the bar for you, but we stick together. And when it's amazing, because I'm a 60-year-old woman, I travel to a location. Last year, the European Championship was in Ireland. And I know that at home, there's a group of people, from 16 to 60 who are watching me lifting on YouTube. So many women in my age, they say themselves, we become invisible. And there I am having people who are, just in my weightlifting club, and they care enough on a weekend to just turn to YouTube and see how I do when I lift the bar. And social connection and feeling connected is also a huge part of aging well. And for me, this has come also with my weightlifting club, which is great. But overall, I think this is something that everybody wants to look at, their social networks.
And I don't ask this question of every guest, but given your life course, I think it's a kind of a good question to ask. So if it were possible to go back in time, is there anything you would change in your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would have loved to be able to care less when I was younger. My illness taught me to be able to tell the difference between what's important in life and what's not. And when you're younger, you waste a lot of time on caring and worrying about stuff that doesn't really matter. On the other hand, I don't really know how you can change that if you don't, have certain experiences and haven't gone through adversity. So I definitely don't want to miss that part of my life where I fell ill and I was in hospital and I was diagnosed, because that made me the person I am today. So that's not something I want to change. But if I could have had that effect of learning what's important a little bit earlier in life, I would take it.
It's a good answer. I think a lot of
Great
people
answer.
want to change their past. And when they do change their past, it really changes that whole trajectory of our present. And, you may not be a European champion at this point if you had not gone through the adversity that you had gone through.
Absolutely. And I think this is every step that you take in your life, it plays a role somehow. And just because we can't see it at the time doesn't mean it doesn't have, some kind of sense or purpose.
Yeah, Kim, you have such a fascinating story. You really do. And you're truly an inspiration to us on this podcast, but definitely to our listeners. I'm assuming you're going to be a huge inspiration to all. Is there a way for our listeners to learn more about you? Like, do you have a website or social media they could reach out and connect you with?
Yes, I have a website, which is with my name, kimrahir.com. And on there, you can actually take a free assessment, because I mentioned you need to know where you're at. If you want to start a journey of wellness and health, there's a free assessment where it is a deep health assessment. So I don't only ask you, can you do 5 push-ups, but it's really a good way of finding out what your actual individual status is and, know what steps you can take to go ahead and to age well. That's kimrahir.com. And then you can follow me on Facebook, also with my name, where I share my weightlifting stuff and tips and tricks and free trainings. And this is where you can sort of have a sneak peek into my life and my work and find out more about what I do.
And this is an audio podcast, so people can't see you and see really how well you have aged. I would not guess your age to be 60. And as a weightlifter, I think many women might be having this image in their head of just some big, bulky, man-like woman sitting in front of us, and that's not at all the case. And so I think that would be helpful for people to kind of get a good visual image of you and see, what weightlifting can do for somebody to age well. And Kim, this has just been such a pleasure. We thank you for being on the Aging Well podcast, and we wish you the best with your coaching and continued competition. I would just want to thank you and keep aging well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.